So today we're doing cheap versus expensive. This car cost me £300 and this car cost me 20 grand. Which one is better? And I know exactly what you're going to be thinking. Of course the most expensive one is better. That's why it cost £20,000. This one cost £300 from Copart and you had to fix it yourself. But I'm here to tell you, I don't think it's that simple. The UK car scene nowadays is filled with cars like this on finance, loads of M140i's, Golf R's, RS3s, everything like that. Anything you can think of that is over like 10 grand is probably on finance, which is literally like 85% of the car scene nowadays, where that, back in 2003 when this was made, it was probably about 10 grand new, but people used to buy cars for like 2 grand, 2.5 grand, and then just put all of their money into characterizing. And I think that art has been lost a little bit over the years, because when you're spending a lot of money, like 20 grand on a car, you don't want to ruin it. So that's why we're exploring both options today. We're going to take them both for a little test drive and see if it's worth really spending all that money on a new fast car. So before we take them out on a test drive, I think the first thing we're going to do is have a look around the car, see which one's a bit more aesthetically pleasing, because I think the older cars are a bit overlooked, especially with these new car people that just love BMWs and everything that's new. They don't appreciate what Suzuki did back in the day. Look at those fog lights. They remind me of an Evo. Let's have a look. The whole styling of this Suzuki is just absolutely packed full of body kits, just large stuff. Look at that. That is like a wide arch body kit from standard. You don't get that on any car nowadays. That is classy. And I mean, look at this. This is probably one of my favorite things about this car. Just like this. Do you get a spoiler this big on any other car from standard nowadays? I don't think you do. That is what you call a fat wang. There are now people looking at me, which is lovely. And as well as the fat spoiler that we also have a pretty good interior on the older cars. Recaro seats, which now is sort of taken as a luxury, especially in Fords. I mean, Recaro are now going out of business. I think they maybe have been bought back, but I can't remember. But these were an absolute classic back in the day. They're also very similar to old Ford bucket seats that Recaro used to do back in the day. But it's just a nice place to be. Yes, mine does have the rear interior stripped out of it at the moment. We're turning this into a race car, but these seats were literally what made me buy this car. And obviously in the interior there's no digi-dash at all, it's all needles. We do have an aftermarket stereo, which it takes you back to the early 2000s. You pick your CD. I've bought CDs recently. Look at that, absolute classic. And we also have a forgotten art, I think, the manual transmission. Now, I slag off manual cars quite a lot of the time because people rave about them like no end. They say you can't have fun in a car without driving a manual car. I think that is absolute bollocks. And older cars seem to have a smell, especially old Fords. This old Suzuki has a very similar smell to what my dad's Toyota Aristo did. If you don't know what one of those are, it has a 2J in it, same engine as the Supra, and it's just got a distinctive smell. When newer cars, you don't really get that. Infestations in the carpets and stuff. But there is something about these cars, older cars, that just give them a bit more character, I think. And just look at how they look in comparison. That, I would say, looks more mean and evil than what that does. I don't know. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. What looks more mean, the older car or the newer car? All newer cars do just seem to look the same, very boring, but these cars are incredibly fun. I don't need to tell you a lot about these cars. Everyone knows a lot about the M140i. It's one of the most common cars in the UK car scene for a reason. Rear wheel drive, 335 brake horsepower from standard. But does this beast compare in any way, shape or form? Should you save yourself some money and buy this for at least £1,000? I think the only way we're really going to tell is by jumping in them and giving them a little bit of a drive. So we're now in the Suzuki, and one thing I would like to clear up is I know these cars don't directly compare, and realistically the better car to have is the BMW, but what this is comparing, is it worth it? You can literally go out and buy an E46 BMW for about £1,500. If I have one of them, that'd be a bit more of a direct comparison, but I don't have one of them. I have a cheap Suzuki. So this is sort of a general idea. I'm using this car as an example. I'm not comparing the direct two cars. I just want to see, generally, is it worth spending more money on a car? And honestly, I'm not sure it is. For pure drivability and core feel, I would say older cars are better. People rave on about manual cars being more engaging. I don't necessarily agree with that, but what I do agree with is older cars feel a bit more, they're more mechanical, so it makes you feel more involved in the process. Like this car is so raw. Even if I'm not changing gear, right? Even if I'm just turning, I'm putting my foot on the accelerator, there's a cable. It's not an electronic throttle. Even the clutch just feels a bit, I don't know, it just feels raw. It just feels like you're driving it, not like a computer is doing all the work for you. It feels like you are in control. When newer cars, even if they're a manual, like I've driven manual newer cars, like as basic as a Vauxhall Astra to even a manual 140 when I was test driving them. The manual boxes feel a bit naff, like it doesn't feel good when you're putting it into gear. Newer cars now, even like the Teslas and stuff. So the Tesla Cybertruck, I believe that's the only car at the moment, but it has no physical connection between the steering wheel and the wheels. It's all done on sensors, computers. How fucked is that? Like, does that not fuck your brain? Because I think about that quite often. Like, just a little raspy exhaust on this. Obviously, it does have pros owning an older car. Generally, they're more unreliable because they're older. If they've not been looked after previously, then you're pretty much going to be fucked. I did just hear water sloshing around in the back of my car, so there is nothing in it. So obviously that's a concern, and obviously that isn't a pro to owning an older car. And I feel like everyone should have a shitbox in their life. They're good fun. You don't have to care where you park it. You don't have to take a 10-mile walk just to get to fucking Tesco's because you parked it a million miles away, because you don't necessarily care about it that much. That's it. We're probably going to jump back in a 140, and I'm probably going to convince myself that you should probably spend that money because that car is extremely fun. So this is now where I just fully contradict everything I've just said, because at heart I love this fucking car. Just the noise, the pops, the banging. Just listen to this. But can you get a car that's as good as this for like 10% of the price? Probably, you know. So unfortunately, as I'm editing this video, I have realised that all the footage of me in the BMW has corrupted. So you're going to get this little desk side, little summary of what I said in the car. Generally, when you buy a car, you can only really get 3 things, and you can never get them all at the same time. And they all revolve around price, reliability, and speed. If you want a car that is quick but cheap, you're not going to get reliability. If you want a car that is quick but reliable, you're going to have to spend that money. So like the M140s, the 240s, any A45 AMG or something like that, as they get older, they get more unreliable, of course, but obviously that price then drops down. You can have fun in both of these cars that I've test drove in this video. The Suzuki Ignis, because it's front wheel drive, it's a little hot hatch, and it feels on the edge all the time because it's not that quick. It's only about 107 brake horsepower, so you can get to that car's maximum capabilities quite easily, where the M140 is a completely different ball game. You've got to keep that back end in so you don't bin it into a tree, where you don't really have any of that issue in the Suzuki because it's just not that quick. But as I said earlier on in the video, I don't want to compare those two cars specifically. I want to compare cheap versus expensive cars. So is it worth buying a cheaper car if you want that speed? Unfortunately, you are going to have to sacrifice that reliability if that is something you want. The reason I bought an M140i way back when I bought it a couple of years ago now is because I needed this car to be my daily driver, and I wanted speed and I wanted a bit of fun from that rear end. But if that is something that you're not that bothered about, or if it's something that's not as important to you, maybe you work from home, or you can work on cars yourself, then you can definitely save some money. A 335i, an old one, a 350Z. Do some research. If you want me to do a whole video on that, let me know in the comment section. But if you're new around here, make sure to subscribe button, and I'll see you in the fucking next one.